All right, all right, all right. All right, all right, all right. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. Just waiting for the couch bot to fire off. Had a couple things to attend to this morning, but we're back in the saddle. Back in the saddle once again, getting this underway. Feedback loop. Um, Really interesting. We had there was a release yesterday of a site by the Basecamp guys. There were folks, I should say Basecamp folks, called Hey.com, and it's kind of it's interesting on a couple of different levels. I'm gonna organize my screens here a little better so I can actually make it around to some things. That'd be nice, right? Make it around to some things. I want to see if I can find the tweets by the ye old Hey.com folks, because they've kind of gone old school. Hey.com. They've kind of gone old school. They are fighting back against the complicated web builds, and just trying to take a peek. It's weird. I cannot find the name of the person that somebody in my feed was doing a ton of Hey.com discussing yesterday, and I know the fine folks over at Basecamp released it. Somebody on their team was posting about the functionality and like kind of how it's built. Nope, that's not him. Anyway, they went anti complicated web builds. This is just straight HTML, CSS. And I think it's kind of an interesting take based on what I was initially kind of seeing, reading in between the tea leaves. What's interesting. This is from the group that basically they created Basecamp and then extracted Ruby on Rails out of it. So it's definitely an interesting look at the direction of modern web development, and kind of, it's one of the first times I've seen of anybody saying, hey, I'm going to push back on making this increasingly complicated. So I think it's worth taking a look at, even if you're not really interested in email. It's a project that's just interesting to take a look at. I'm going to pull it up here so we can take a peek at it. Right after I hop over to the general channel and we kick this thing off. So let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Greetings, one and all. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. It is time for the feedback loop, and I'm so glad to have you folks along. My jaw is intact, at least for a couple more days. For those that were following along in Discord yesterday, I had some facial work, teeth work, jaw work, whatever. However you go about saying that. No pain, so nothing to worry about there. We've got a couple things here this morning. We've got Rebecca in here. We've got Katie in here. And I just want to make sure that I'm not forgetting somebody along the way. No, but look at the Caros yesterday. Yeah, we're all good. So we've got Rebecca and Katie to look at. We also have, I wanted to tip your attention over to, I'm going to share my screen. This is a new product from the Basecamp folks. It's Hey.com, and basically it's kind of rethinking the concept of email. I can't completely tell you that I know a ton about the product. What piqued my interest was how they've gone about building it, And there was an entire thread yesterday on how this is just basic straight up HTML. Like they didn't go through any complicated web build. This is as simple as you like, building from the ground up. They tried to I think it seems like they tried to purposely make it non-complicated. And it's really interesting to kind of see one of the originators of frameworks, in that they created Ruby on Rails, and Ruby on Rails has been used in thousands of products at this point. They created Ruby on Rails, and they decided, hey, you know what, we're just going to use straight up HTML for this. HTML and CSS, obviously. There's probably some JavaScript in there too, but there's not. They specifically said no React, no complicated frameworks, and I think it's kind of interesting. I would encourage you to dig in, even go in and look at the source code. You know, when you look at the stuff, I'll flip it over here to the right so we can kind of look at it. You can just kind of tell, like, you know, class, grid, fade in, you know, footer, grid. Like it's just really easy to read the code here. Even if you hopped on New Pragmatic site. New Pragmatic's built with Gatsby, and you can't read the classes to save your life, because it's all CSS inside of JavaScript. So it's kind of interesting to see it go the other direction. I'm super interested in reading into their process and the way they're thinking about it, but I wanted to put it out there because it's I want you to have a way to go looking at different products that are coming out and see how they're being built. I'm not here pitching, you know, they have a manifesto, so I'll let their manifesto speak for itself. They love email, but they think it should be better, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Have they nailed it? Don't know yet. Haven't got my invite. So once I use the product, I'll let you know. Anyway, speaking of products, let's hop over here. Thanks, Basecamp. Let's hop over here and talk about Rebecca. So Rebecca had a question specifically related to an interview that she had yesterday. And this is where you have to, so it says, I had an interesting call last night with the person I told you about. And she said, my portfolio does a good job of showing the scope of the variety of projects I'm working on, but not the specifics on e-commerce problems I've solved. Okay. Let's focus here, because this is where you have to begin tuning your portfolio for the audience that it's going to hit. Okay? And what does that mean? Well, there's two things. There's two things that I think are really important. One, you got to have a portfolio, right? I mean, and I'll be honest with you, Rebecca, when we look at this, it's pretty clear you've worked on a lot of projects now. I mean, when we started this, the only thing you had in here was Okta, and it wasn't finished. All right, now it's like Silicandy, MyClickShift, Sellwise, CarePoint, you know, paid project, class project, personal project before you got started, and then paid project. So, like, most of this is paying gig stuff. The interesting aspect is, if you were speaking with somebody about healthcare enterprise software, this is perfectly fine to leave at the top. If you were talking to somebody about agency work, I would shift it down to Sellwise, because this was done with an agency. You could also use this because I know you were doing this as a freelancer. But this conversation centered around e-commerce. And I really feel like when I look at everything that's here, the e-commerce play, or the commerce play, is Silicandy. Are you going, this really comes down to how you position yourself in the job search. This is why it's so hard to split the direction you're going, because when you split the direction you're going, what you typically find is that there are jobs that you're well suited for and they align with CarePoint. There are jobs that you're well suited for and they align with Silicandy. Those projects are miles apart. Okay, and you've got to figure out a way to tune your work to show up when appropriate. And you could reorder the homepage. Just, okay. So I feel like my best project right now, the way you're saying, what you're saying is, I feel like my best project to showcase where I'm at in my career is CarePoint. That's fine. CarePoint's not a bad project. But if they're looking for, if the people you're talking to or the jobs you're applying for aren't healthcare focused, aren't enterprise focused, if they're more, consumer focused, maybe, or mobile, like Okta would be great if you were applying for a mobile design gig. If it was some sort, my click shift is about staffing, and maybe this is like a business focused. Oh, that's so rude. I apologize. Yawns. I just made everybody on this sleepy. I apologize. But when we look at my click shift, if I was applying for anything, like if I was applying at Calendly, for instance, my click shift would probably be really interesting to talk to them about. So it's about tuning, but another piece of this, honestly, is about how you show up to the interview. This is something that's really important. You can't, or you shouldn't, sit down in front of a group of people or sit down with a person and scroll through your website. It is time to talk about having a purpose-built deck to share with them. You share it on screen, and that's the way you guide them through the project. And I know you've built a deck before. I know you've built a deck before. What you do inside of that deck is really important. Do you lead with something like Silicandy? Are you talking about e-commerce? Anytime you have a specific interview, you should be tuning your deck to match the audience that you're talking to. There is no one-size-fits-all deck unless you're applying for the same basic type of job at every stage. Like, if you're moving from UI to UX to e-commerce to product to visual design, like, that's all in the same space. Like healthcare, enterprise, it's all in the same space, but you've got projects that highlight that better. You've got projects you can shift to depending on your audience, and you do not have unlimited time to hopefully walk them through to get to the point where you talk about the thing. You've got to lead with that. One of the things that I talk about, I don't know if you've seen the presenting your research project or video, but you've got a minute with these people to grab their attention. You can't let me tell you the history of. So you've done a good job getting your portfolio up to a point where you can put it out there and it generates interest. But I think this is where you've got to come back to your deck. And again, I remember we worked on a deck. Okay, you've got to come back to that deck, and that's what you've got to lean on in these interviews. And if you're not doing that, and you're just leaning on the site, I think you're leaving a lot of opportunity to tailor to the interview, where the website, your portfolio is your portfolio. Like, you're leading with CarePoint, that's fine. If you got the call off of CarePoint, that's okay. All right? But if this is a situation where they're looking for a particular thing and it ain't CarePoint, I wouldn't lead with CarePoint. I would drive them down to Silicandy, but I wouldn't even take them there on the website. I would just go there inside of a pitch deck. Okay? And a pitch deck is, traditional slideshow. Google Docs. You can build it in Figma and export it to Google Docs. By the way, that plugin, if we can go find that real quick. Hey, Katie, we'll be right back. Don't worry, I'm coming back. I was using humans. Let's go to Google. I'm just going to search for Google inside of and we'll go to plugins. And this is Google Sheets, Figma Sheets, presentation. Let's search for presentation. Yeah, pitch deck. So, presentation exporter, show and tell. If we go into show and tell, I think this is it. No, that's not it, but it's not bad either. Nope. Yeah, I really just want plugins. Thank you. Exporter seems like the one. Okay, well, this goes to a presentation open source platform. I'm not really crazy about taking you that route. Yeah. Pitch Deck Presentation Studio. Okay, so this is Pitch Deck. This is not. Oh, wait. Maybe this is it. Yeah, here it is. Duh. Export to PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, and PDF. Boom. So you can build like really cool stuff here in Figma and just export it wherever it is that you want them to go. So yeah, I would look at this. It's interesting. They got some YouTube videos here as well, to guide you through. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I did not realize they export it to literally all of these different platforms. So that's pretty powerful, because that just means that you can export to literally anything. I do not know what the cost is, if there's a cost. But anyway, bottom line, Rebecca, is we've got to get you into a deck and out of the portfolio. I wouldn't necessarily worry about tuning the portfolio for the interview. I'd tune a deck for the interview. And depending on the type of job you're applying for, yes, tuning the portfolio is a good idea. But you can't do that if you're applying for a wide variety of jobs. You just have to have a really good portfolio, which you have. You have a good portfolio. Although I'd still like a little more height on this, to where, like, CarePoint. Sorry, Chris is gonna be fussy for a second. I would love it. Well, I can't do it that way. I'll leave it alone. It's just the proportions of my screen won't allow me to pull up the tools that I want to use, because all I want to do is come in here and like push that down. Padding bottom, 50, 80, and then we close it. Like care point's not quite on the screen. I just want a little more height here. Of course, then I get a problem there. So you get the idea. Let's move on. Katie. Katie, you've got color at work, and color at work is this is where we begin looking at color schemes and thinking about how to use color for action. And let's just jump right on into it because I know you've got your stuff here. Let's start over here at part 1. Now, part 1 is interesting because there are a few things here that I want to call attention to. One, when we get in here, let me hide the tools there. We get in here, yes, the dominant, your dominant is the blues. What's interesting is you didn't pick up on the background, like this background blue shows up quite a bit, but it's not in your palette here. You got the yellows, you got the greens, so there's a nice palette here. You also picked up on the red, which shows up really only in this one area. I'm guessing they probably use it for errors, but we didn't pick up on this really dark, almost nearly black, and that's what they're using for the action color. If you look at anything that's a link, like that's all the same color. This is the same color, obviously. You get down here, the next button we have, it's the same button. The social media links are the same. So this dark blue is a really important color in the grand scheme of things. It's the color they use consistently for the action, and it's not represented here in the scheme. So so I'd look out for that because you're missing on, you're thinking too literal about Crayola box color and not enough about saturation on screen of a dominant or of a particular color. It didn't meet the threshold. You thought of it as black, and that can be a color. Okay. Here I really liked. I also like this color scheme. It does have like a soft complement because it's light. It's light reds and pinks and light greens and taupes, and it's really just an interesting usage of color without overwhelming you. So many sites are just like, we'll get the brand new in a second, but so many sites are like, blah, and like this one's just not. That's one of the reasons why I pulled it out and put it in here, because I want to introduce us to this idea that you can use color, you can play color back. When you design with color, it's not Crayola. It's you want to call attention to things. And oddly enough, that's the one place where I don't necessarily know if this does a great job. You called this out as the dominant color, and it kind of is. I mean, you see it in these highlighted areas that they want to call attention to, but it's hard to really pick a quote dominant color here, where over here it's very easy for to see what's popping out. This one, brand new. I threw this in here. This is a great site. I love the site. But the site is really kind of all over the place. The one thing I do like about it is the usage of the, first, as you pointed out, it's got this dark gray, which kind of makes everything feel heavy. But they use color strategically to help organize concepts, and I do think that it's good from that perspective. Reviewed, noted. So this is like something they've specifically reviewed. Here are things that they're pointing out. But is it like a great use, especially for like a branding site? It's like, I don't know. I think this could be a lot better, and it's just not. This one, this is the effectiveness of going simple. This is very much monochromatic. It's just all various tones of green or gray. Like there is some gray in there, but it's very easy to follow. Your action color is the same as the branding color, which that's possible. The one thing I'd point out though is when your action color and the branding color are the same, you typically don't have, you aren't overwhelmed by the branding color. Like they're using something else. Like here it's white space, it's illustration. It's not like a big swath of, that you see this approach sometimes where they just like come and fill the whole thing in with green. Okay, that's not what's going on here. So then we come over here, and generated photos is interesting because this is AI. These are none of these people are real. These are just photos that have been generated by a machine. So if you're ever looking for like royalty-free images, don't worry about making anybody mad here because these people don't exist, which is scary. Here you picked up on the action color, which is this blue, and you know it's the action color because as you come down, you keep seeing it show up anytime that there's some sort of button to click, which I like that. I like that a lot. There's also a secondary button here, which is important, but they're just using an outline. They use the same shape though. If you look at this browse photos and then come up here to sign in, you're using the same basic button shape, except they're switching out and just saying, hey, I want to call attention to this particular button. I'm going to put the blue on it. So in many ways, like they've got this yellow as the dominant. I really think that the blue is really what they're calling attention to and saying, click here. So that said, let's come back over to, let's go to exercise 2. Exercise 2 is always fun, to be completely honest with you. So I rebuilt this so that we could take a look at how, if we didn't have any color, which this doesn't, things get pretty boring. Like, is that good? I mean, I like the fact that I see the images and the images pop, but what could we do to make color useful? And that's really the challenge. You're given a color palette. This is the color palette from the project, and here you've decided that you're gonna lean on the green, and I can tell that I must be on the Explorer tab here because I've clicked on this. You've also decided to use it for the labels, which is interesting because you've got other things available to you. But what it seems to me that's occurring here is that you're basically saying, I want to keep this as simple as possible. I'm going to keep it locked in on the screen. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to get drawn into making this really Crayola. And this is how we typically design with color. You use color strategically. Yes, you can have other color. You can have other palette options available, but you don't have to use them on every screen. Okay. Restrained usage of color is probably going to net generate a positive outcome for you more than overwhelming use of color. All right. So the other thing I want to point out here is you've got this outlined here, which makes me feel like I could probably tap on it and something might happen, but it's not selected right now. And then this notification is green, which makes me wonder if do I have a notification right now? If I tap on that, do I get a pop-up? So that was something that was interesting. I wanted to kind of talk with you further and ask more about that one. I don't mind it being colored here. Perhaps if I gave you a prompt and said, what would the selected card? Like, what happens when I tap the card? Maybe that would give you a little more guidance. But I thought you did a pretty good job here, and I really overall like the approach here to the dark mode. Dark mode, you basically said, "Hey, I'm going to come in," and I noticed that you now you're using different colors for like the line work, and some of this, like the image here, you've got you got to figure out how to get that behind. Right now, it's not really working. So we would have to sort out, like, is this image supposed to be inside of the box or sitting on top of the box? I don't know at the moment. But I did find it interesting that you kept the label colors, but now you're outlining these things in different colors. I wasn't really sure what to make of that. It's not bad. It's just I was a bit at a loss of whether it was good. It's a minor detail, not a big deal. I did like the fact that overall I still felt like you maintained, like, your color usage for what's active. And I've seen people come through and, like, put colors on all these, and it's just like, it's not necessary. I mean, yes, you could, but do you need to? Probably not. But overall, good job here. I would just like, what's the purpose of the outline on the box? Because well, actually, you know what? Weird. I totally missed that from afar here. So the outline was there the entire time. I just didn't see it. That's interesting. Okay. So you went really subtle here. So subtle that I didn't pick up on it. But this is, again, a usage of color where you have been restrained. And it's also interesting that I looked straight at it and didn't see that this was purple until I got over here, and the purple shows up more prominently because it's on the dark background. Interesting. I love things where the eye kind of is looking past everything. It's like, how is that even possible? But you get an idea of how visual dynamics work when that happens. So interesting. It seems like now your color usage must be okay. So for challenges, I'm going to do this green, and for trending posts, I'm going to do this purple. Not right nor wrong. I think your usage is still better than if you'd, like, said, oh, and I'm going to make this card green. Like if instead of that you decided that you were going to fill it with the green or whatever, like, that would be bad. Wouldn't want that at all. But you get the idea. I think your subtle usage of color is better than if you, like, start filling these things in. So good instincts there. Use color for action, and I think you're gonna be better off. Okay. And oddly enough, that's it for the morning. Although we have a very busy day ahead, with a number of you. I think that today, if I'm correct, it's Katie, Rebecca, Lisa, and Eve, I think. So busy day ahead. I look forward to chatting with many of you. And yeah, we're going to punt out of here. Chris Courtney, Feedback Loop. And I will chat with all of you again tomorrow. Take care.